So those are the 10 cultural identifiers, and I think by going through this process of talking with parents and asking them what's important, you're able to. What I did was the universal themes across the board. So the commonalities amongst each of the distinct Pasifika cultural groups, I was then able to synthesize it into a top 10 list. I just chose 10 because I like David Letterman and the top 10 show. But yeah. So that was the idea around that. So then being able to transition this across into what it means for you and your schools. And I think it boils down, thanks, Nessa's laughing. So it boils down to building the relationships is really important. Can't stress enough the idea around reciprocal learning, because there's things that the kids will teach you as well as you teaching the kids. So I've highlighted some keywords there. Um, Cross-cultural relationships, enhancing empower. But please feel free to type up any questions in the chat box. So I think I'm nearing the end of the presentation because I wanted to allow time for questions. Um, yeah, I think if anything, the current research literature identifies the gaps around achievement still, but I think there is a growing trend to moving towards strengths-based assessment, which is great, and I'm a huge fan of that. Um, yeah, so, and also the valuing of Pasifika research epistemologies too. So there are things out there that Pasifika researchers have created that are distinct to their Pasifika cultures. For example, you've got the Hodges model of Te Waiwai from the Cook Islands. So you have pieces that people construct and weave together. You also have the Kakala framework, which is Tongan from Feynman, which talks about a garland of flowers. So constructing that together to make something beautiful that is functional as well. Um, and also the Fale model, which is taken from the health sector from Carl Polotu Enderman, with the poles and the foundation and the roof of the house, and thinking about how things are put together and constructed in a way that it provides a solid foundation for all of that. So, um, yeah, just some key Pasifika methodologies and epistemologies around that. I think if I was to give you one thing to take away today, it's definitely this image here around knowing the strengths of the children. Because once you celebrate the success of those gifted Pasifika children in your classes, they'll experience that level of success to a point where they feel empowered and they love who they are, and then you're able to then broach a conversation about, okay, um, what are you not so good at? And then explaining to the students, well, okay, if you're not so good at that, what can we do to transform those and connect them to talent? So this is a process that I've used and it's worked really well. As a practitioner, I was good at picking out students who had potential and talking to them about, okay, these are the things you're good at. I'm going to give you a platform where we will showcase those strengths. And once they experience levels of success with those strengths, especially for performance, which is quite good, um, I would profile students at student assemblies. And because they're performing to their peers, they would have that level of, oh, wow, that level of acceptance and, being famous in the school. And then we're able to then have some conversations around what are some things that you need to improve to be the best version of you. Okay, so that kind of thing. So being able to build on those gifts. Final challenge in your world with gifted minority students. What do you do that tells those kids they are gifted? So it's having a look at the ways in which you as a teacher interact with those students. Because I think you have to be able to tell students enough times for them to think about, okay, this is really important for me to understand as a gifted Pasifika student. Okay, I need to really think, am I really gifted or, yeah. So possibly because historically we've been told so many times that we're failures, underachievers, we have that tale of underachievement. And then for a teacher to come across and say, you're actually really good at this, and I want to see more of this type of strength in your other areas as well. So, yeah. So, what is it that we can do as practitioners, as educators, as facilitators? Um, to ensure that those kids continue to feel validated as young people. So, final challenge: how do you see gifted and brown? Like, this is what I talked about today. Really put your lenses out of shape, or thinking, oh, I don't know what she's talked about. That was like kind of random, or minor tweaks to your pedagogy or your mindset. Like, okay, I kind of got that. Yeah, I've kind of been doing that, practicing that the whole time anyway. Or is it like the bottom right image there? You've got to really like Robocop this thing and really have some high tech PD or something to really think about how you can impact others to shift their mindset around how they view Pasifika children. So, time for questions, and I will see what's in the chat box, or if you'd like to put your hand up, then you can speak on the mic and I'll mute myself. That'll be awesome too. Hi, Jeremy. So the beginning part I talked about, I used my connection with my music students when I was teaching to encourage their parents to come to an identification process meeting where we talked about what it is that they valued as Pasifika people in terms of giftedness. But yeah, definitely you can email me. I've got to see if my contact details are there. So there, you can email me there, and I can probably send you this presentation, definitely. Yeah, Angus McFarlane, we spoke together in Invercargill a few weeks ago before the ULEN conference. He did his keynote on, because the conference theme was Te Ao the New World. So looking at the place of Māori within the New World. And Dr. Melinda Weber, she contributed as well to that giftedness from an Indigenous perspective book. That one of the so we both had papers in that book, and that was edited by Associate Professor Wilma Viale from the University of Wollongong. So that's I think if you Google that, Google our names, it'll come up with those papers from the AAEGT website. It's the Australasian Association for the Education of Gifted and Talented Students. Oh yes, Te Mihinga. Okay, so serve when you're a young child, it's kind of serve to serve. When you get told to do stuff all the time, it's because you're building the capacity for service and understanding the importance of that. Probably when you're in your early 20s to mid 30s, you're in this serve to lead, where you're being shaped to become a leader, and that's where you're using your service to create those leadership skills capacity. So you do all the training at a young age, and then so you got serve to serve, then serve to lead, and then when you're at the, I don't know, pinnacle of your career, you should be leading to serve. So it comes full circle. So you should be then training our young people and influencing them on how to best do that. So that's the cycle there. Thanks, Tamina. The research tool in terms of the identifiers is currently used in by the Te Toitupu Consortium, by the Gifted and Talented project to identify Pasifika students, Pasifika students in Aotearoa. So that's a really heartwarming thing for me. Yes, that's right, Selena, building leaders through service. Thanks, Jeremy. So we're going to visit Kapiti in a couple of weeks. We did run a cluster, a Petone cluster, last month, and that was a kind of an information session with schools in the Petone area, and that's through Ingrid Fringley Vaipuna, who's another gifted researcher. I'll put her name here because you can read some of her work. That's her name there. You can also read about Max Ngalu. He's another researcher who did some initial findings around Māori and Polynesian giftedness. And of course, Dr. Melinda Webber has been mentioned before. Very good friend of mine, Vivian Russell, has finished her Masters on Māori giftedness. What else is there? And Jessie Fuimatu, also, if you Google these names, it'll come up with some really great ways of looking at Pasifika giftedness. Or you can also look at the Pasifika or cultural identifier section within the 2012 Meeting the Needs of Gifted and Talented Students in New Zealand report. So that's a 2012 report. I think it was edited by Tracy Riley and others. That's a really good starting point as well if you want to be able to include an identification process as part of your gifted program. So since this work, I've created gifted programs with a Pasifika focus at Epsom Girls Grammar School last year. And if you go on the Tika website, you can see videos in the media gallery. And also at St. Paul's was another school I worked at as well. So it's being able to think about how students can see what they're naturally good at and how to connect that with the natural raising of achievement. Because I think when we focus as educators specifically on the achievement straight away, you lose your Pasifika learners. You actually need to know them as people first, know what they're good at, celebrate that. Now let's work on the stuff you're not so good at. So it's that process that works really well with the students, because they need to be able to trust you, and they can't trust you if you kind of introduce them to things or choose to focus on things that actually disconnect and disengage them. Thanks, Phoebe. Yep, that's the one, Vanessa. That's the report there. How do we ensure we build on the gifted research? Can you be? Yeah, yeah. Well, the names of those researchers that I mentioned. I mean, those are the only examples of gifted Pasifika research that's out there, in my stuff that's just come out last year. So how do we continue to build on it? We just need to keep researching and keep having these conversations with our students. I think the key factor, as I mentioned earlier, is really talking to the parents of the children. Good question, Selena. I've been asked that quite often, and that's actually where I'm looking. It's where I'm heading towards. I've just started my PhD, and I think I'm developing a success criteria for Pasifika learners. So that's why I focused initially on giftedness, because it's looking at the top students that have done well. And I know when I've read the research literature around other types of research on Pasifika learners, it's always been negative and it's always been deficit theory. So I thought, if you keep focusing on failure, you're going to get more failure. How about we focus on the kids that are doing well, figure out what it is that they do, and then extend it from there. So I'm moving from the master's research on giftedness connecting to music to let's look at success in the learning areas that the Pasifika learners are achieving high merit and excellence grades in. So, okay, Vanessa, there's what's called a Pasifika Research Priorities Report. It's an orange document. It's a 2012 report. If you can find that on the Education Counts website. So if you go www.educationcounts.govt.nz and then just type in Pasifika in the search panel, or it might be located on the left-hand side. It's got a whole Pasifika section on there. Yeah, it's going to be great, Vicky, you working on that paper. No worries, Nessa. You can definitely email me or follow me on Twitter. There, I've got my Twitter handle on that last slide. And I regularly pump out. I've got a blog coming out tomorrow, focusing on Pasifika pedagogy. So I'll type it at the bottom there. Anthony is not going to be a fan, but it's called Manuscript. Okay, there it is. There's the link. Okay, this is the backstory to that. Anthony helped me start my blog, and now I've got like over 20,000 page views, which doesn't make me very happy. But please follow Anthony. Can you please type your blog there so that people can follow you too? Yeah, if you have any song requests, I'm quite happy to write blogs on songs because I have different pages as well. So thanks, Def. Yep, that's the document there. I think in terms of future things for me, I'm interested in looking at the Pasifika learners within Kura Kaupapa Māori and Wharekura. Because I know that some of the work that I've done up in Kaikohe, we've looked at Pasifika learners who, because they're in Te Ao Māori, following tikanga Māori in a kura, they kind of lose their sense of self as well. So that it's the struggling to try and figure out, okay, um, how can I how can I be in the world? So it's yeah, I think that's the next level for me is the that connection between Māori as well, and how students can celebrate all aspects of who they are. So it's definitely the push towards that holistic view and celebrating that within students. So I think what I can tell you from early indications of my work is that people are the students that have different ethnic backgrounds. Like for example, if a student says, "Oh, my mother is half Maori, half Tongan, and my dad is half Samoan and half Niuean," um, but those students say, "Oh, but I'm a New Zealander or I'm a Kiwi," because they don't see all of that kind of the distinct compartmentalization, I guess, of ethnic groups. So this is what I mean by when I talked before around it's important to recognise the ethnic backgrounds of the children, but now we're moving, in terms of the future of Aotearoa, we're moving towards this continuum around identity construction. Um, so we're, as Tim Hing has rightly pointed out, the students are now starting to choose who they are and how they identify, which is why we're getting this level of disconnect too. So we're having these emerging diversities and the depth of diversities. They're actually multiple diversities, and everything's all layered and mixed up, and not mixed up in a bad sense. It's just trying to decipher that and how to best deliver best practice to the kids. That first starts with the conversations. So thanks for joining me, Jeremy. It's awesome to meet you. Please contact me and I'd like to keep in touch. Any other questions? We have 4 minutes. Yeah, that's a good one. The question is when students send their children to kura, some of the things that we have heard in our work has been that they want their children to have a sense of culture. So, in the absence of their own heritage culture, they will go with the culture that's available in their local area. Um, yeah, so that's one reason I've been given. Yes, that's right, Nessa, and that's why I say it's important to know the different ethnic groups first, find out from the students how much, I mean, do you speak the language? Like, have you been there? Do your parents speak the language? Like, who do you find yourselves surrounded by that speaks the language or, practices the customs? And I know we're trying to dispel from students that association with, oh, I don't really speak the language, so I'm not really, I'm plastic. Yeah, so it's trying to remove those negative labels from the students. And when I've had those conversations with the students, I'd say, you're not plastic. You're still who you are. I'm just curious, and I just want to know, how do you view yourself? How do you label yourself? Because if as long as you know who you are, then it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks of you. So it's instilling in that sense of empowerment and yeah, so that they when they go out into the world, they if they get attacked, they can defend themselves. Yeah. Yes, that's right, Selena. Like, what values do they bring? Some of the questions I've asked the children after I've talked to them about what they find important, I asked them, "So, what do you think about these questions?" And they're surprised and they say, "That's the first time I've thought about it. I haven't really thought about what it is that I do or who I am and what I want to be." And I think for me, having that sense of agency, promoting agency and student voice is important. And I think that would be probably the main approach I'm looking at, is that I think our kids have the answers, they just can't articulate it. And they've never been given the platform really to express who they are. So it's providing the space and the time and a genuine sense of wanting to be. Because kids know straight away if you're trying to be nosy and ask them things. But yeah, yeah, like Miss, just getting more personal and asking me these questions. But so you have to build the rapport to build the relationship first before you can ask these types of questions. You can't ask them cold, otherwise you'd be a detective or a police officer, and that's not a safe. That's right. You've got to be genuine, and kids can read that straight away. Yeah, it doesn't matter how others perceive you, as long as you're strong in who you are and where you come from and where you're heading. Because then you'll just be able to shrug it off like water off a duck's back. Chocolate biscuits. Start with a feed that always works well. Yeah. Well, it's 12 o'clock, people. I feel like I've just finished an hour on a radio show, but yeah, please feel free to contact me. Follow me on Twitter. I'll follow you back, and we'll continue to have these conversations. I'm really keen to share and support fellow educators. Um, it's always a lot of fun talking shop with others since I'm not in the shop per se anymore, but always keen to hear what everyone's doing. So, no, thanks, Steph. If you want to talk to someone who's an expert on gifted students who have also got learning disabilities, they're called twice exceptional students. Then look up Tanya Thorogood, who's one of the participants here, but she hasn't typed anything. But she is brilliant at what she does. Also an expert on dyslexia, so she's part of the Spelled group. So please look her up. Um, she's on there. Gotta submit a tape, eh? I think I need to submit a tape and do some kind of education show. Wouldn't that be nice for a change? Just talking about education, doing some professional learning on the radio. And just call it I Learn. I don't know. I Heart Learning. Yeah, gotta find someone willing to back it, Vicky. Yes, Selena, you've raised your hand. Thanks, Selena. I really appreciate that.